So, Steve, one of the, yesterday we talked about all of the J6 stuff that continues to kind of pop off under your purview because you're the guy that keeps leading the charge on making sure that we don't forget that there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. But another story that you have kind of been on is this story with Representative Cory Mills over in Florida, who the latest was that he's being evicted from his D.C. apartment for failing to pay several months of rent. Now, it's interesting because his rent is almost $21,000 a month?
That's just at the penthouse in D.C. He has another $12,000 a month property on the beach in Florida.
Who among us, I mean, every once in a while, I'm like, I just get several months behind on my $20,000 a month mortgage.
I mean, when you only have a $175,000 paycheck,
yeah,
you've got a $350,000 a month, year rent due. I mean, you might get behind, especially if you're not able to bring in the money you need to bring in from.
Well,
he
listen,
brings that extra money in from.
He is a congressman, and so he is just treating his personal life the way that Congress treats our money, which is we're just going to spend money that we don't have. So, who should expect anything different from someone like that? But you've got you had this whole X thread that you posted online. And so what's the latest with all of this?
Look, I'm going to start off by saying it this way. This was a story I did not want. Mm-hmm. It was brought to me by our editor-in-chief. I was actually down in Florida already working on another story, and he called me up and said, "Hey, much longer are you going to be in Florida?" And to be, full disclosure, I was going through a little bit of a health crisis at the time. Wow. So all I wanted to do was get home to North Carolina and see my doctor. And so I told him, I said, I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm out of here. Because Cory Mills, his home district is in Central Florida, and I was right there. And so I took off, and then they started just piling all these documents and all this research that had already been done on Mills, not just that our own reporters were doing at the time, Jill Savage, Peter Giedel, but there were other journalists also working on this same story, other publications looking at this. And then there were these independent open source investigators that had been looking at for years his alleged stolen valor issues and some other claims related to his money and his businesses and where it all comes from and how he's became an alleged, multimillionaire. And so I wasn't interested. I mean, look, there were some sex stories involved too, and it seemed to me to be a distraction from what I like to do. Mm-hmm. And we don't always get to do what we like to do. Mm-hmm. So I was very politely, as I was on medication back home, and I'd gone through a couple of procedures at the hospital, and I was.
Were you loopy, Steve?
What's that?
Were you loopy?
Oh, look, there's nothing that goes with, Vicodin better than a good bourbon.
Than a good Flying Aces.
Right. And so I all of a sudden one day I get some information about a particular FBI agent that was investigating Cory Mills, allegedly, except that it didn't look right. There was something that didn't look right about this particular FBI agent. It seemed to me more like the FBI agent was investigating our sources to find out what they knew about Cory Mills, not for the agency, but rather for Cory maybe directly. Because this would take us to a 2-hour show, sure. And obviously our brother Eric's here right now. We don't want to steal the time.
No, you're good, bro.
But it was a situation where it just didn't pass the smell test, mm-hmm. And now I'm interested. Mm-hmm. And so I dove into the story specifically to investigate the FBI agent. Right. That's where I began.
Not that you have any experience in investigating the FBI or...
I have experience with them investigating me.
Looking into any of the deep state or anything like that. Not that you have experience there.
Yeah, but we don't talk about the other one. Right? No, but we did. I went hard onto this case, even to the point where I confronted the agent at a Memorial Day event in the Orlando area. Mm-hmm. I was very respectful because of the nature of the event and what it was, but I did get some questions in, which of course she refused to answer. And then we finally took our our investigation straight to the 7th floor of the Hoover Building. I mean, it's a long. Again, I'm trying to give the short version of this, but I eventually got this actually to the desk of Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and the General Counsel of the FBI to look at it. And then it just gets weirder after that. Okay, but now, so I'm going to leave that alone and say, but okay, now I'm fully engaged because in the process of investigating the investigators, I began to learn a lot more about Representative Mills than I ever wanted to know, and that includes the business operations, foreign weapons trading business that he is in, the various offices that he still has set up around the world, like in Kabul, Afghanistan,
That's an interesting.
Pakistan.
Okay.
And this is a guy that we thought here at the Blaze was Captain America. Glenn Beck had him on a podcast right after the rescues in Western North Carolina that Cory Mills, Representative Cory Mills participated in.
We call him Core.
Or I call it the Cory story. That's where I'm at with this right now. And it is a situation where we've been forced to reconsider everything that we thought about him on every plane and in every aspect of his life. Not only the contradictions in his religion, he's been openly contradictory himself about what he believes, who he believes, where he goes to church, who his pastors are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Massive amount of stolen valor accusations. Most of the men that he served with overseas want to see him in prison for his claims of his heroism that never happened.
Oof.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. Stolen valor is a crime.
Yeah.
And then we get into the sexcapades, which we're not covering. There's another publication that is going to cover some of that, but we know about it. And then there was the nexus that started us, which was the fact that our own Jill Savage, the host of The Mandate here at the Blaze, was basically being flirted with or to by Representative Mills, going all the way back to Western North Carolina in a meeting that they had with him there during his rescue operations, and while she and Glenn Beck traveled up there together with Mercury One, and that's where they met, and that's where we heard the first lie from Cory Mills, where he told her, I'm really lonely. And he says it in front of everybody on the helicopter. It was kind of a strange dynamic and a strange place to go into a sob story about how he's been alone for so long. He hasn't been with anybody for over a year, and I'm just really lonely.
Yeah, never trust a married man. Regardless of what
This
say.
is a married man,
advice.
right? Saying
he's
this.
married. That's
and then fast forward to February 19th of this year. So this was early October. Where he had the lonely story. Now the entire so he and Jill exchanged phone numbers. I mean, he's a congressman. He's allegedly a multimillionaire, the best dressed man in Washington.
Is he?
That's what they say.
Ooh, I don't say it.
I mean, I know. I mean, he does wear lifts as well, but there is that, and so
that's automatic disqualification.
It is.
Sorry, Core.
So
Can I still call you Core? No, sorry, you're not.
But what happened is while they were having their, kind of building a relationship by sending messages to each other and planning on going out, they never, because of, distance and jobs and that sort of thing, they never were able to actually have that first date. But on February 19th, there was a police call at 1:15 p.m. at that luxury $21,000 per month penthouse apartment, in which the police were called in on a domestic violence issue by a young 27-year-old girl of Iranian descent, who we learned later, Sarah Rabiani, is the girl that had been living with Cory actually for over a year. But on the helicopter, the story was, I'm lonely and
it seems like he's asking everyone out. He just can't keep it in his pants. It sounds like allegedly, Core. Right. Allegedly. That's all I'm saying.
Allegedly.
But so he had this, there was court documents of it, the failure to pay. And he's still in this X space that were you in it or you just found it later on?
No. Well, first of all, there's court documents of the domestic violence call. We've published those. There are court documents of the tenant or the management company of his apartment,
Right.
Actually going to the Superior Court of D.C. and filing a suit for eviction against the congressman. But this eviction process had begun all the way back in January of this year. It wasn't brand new.
Right.
So there's when I said earlier, there's just so many overlapping things here.
Yeah.
It gets crazy, it gets confusing. Bottom line is the walls are closing in around him. His life is falling apart. He's not who he says he is. He's never been who he's claimed to. All the way going back from his time in the service to his time working for the contractors, these security contractors like Blackwater and DynCorp and those kinds of things that provide security for VIPs overseas. Even they fired him once they found out about the stolen valor issues. It just goes on and on and on and on. And then he marries an Iraqi woman in 2014 and is married by one of the most radical muftis in the entire country, who was an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. The mufti himself, member of the Muslim Brotherhood, outspoken. So many terrorists have come from that mosque in just outside of D.C., including the shoe bomber. The whole thing why we had to take our shoes off to board a plane for something.
Which we don't have to anymore. Thank you, President Trump.
Right.
Even if you're not pre-check, you don't have to take off your shoes anymore.
And then you come all the way up to this, which I did this, X thread yesterday on, about his lies about the actual eviction and the non-payment of his rent. It's every single time he opens his mouth. We are on Sara Unfiltered, right? Yeah. Every time he opens his mouth, he steps on his and again, and then we have the receipts to prove it. And ultimately, it's his that's going to get him in trouble because that is what has led him to the place. Because if the February 19th thing had not happened, Jill would have never known that she was lied to on that helicopter, that he was, a completely lonely man with nobody else in his life. And that's when it was like, okay, well, if he lied to us about that, what else did he lie to us about?
If you like this clip and you want to see the full episode, click here. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, come on, you know you do. Click here.